Have you ever woken up, sat on the edge of your bed, and just paused? Not because your body was tired, but because your spirit needed a moment. It's something that happens more often with age. You move slower, not out of weakness, but out of awareness. You begin to notice the quiet details of the day. The light on the wall, the sound of your own breath, the coolness of the floor beneath your feet. Life starts to feel both more fragile and more precious. You realize how quickly the years passed, how many of them were spent hurrying, worrying, chasing something just out of reach. And now you wonder how to make these next years different. Not just longer, but lighter. Not just filled with time, but filled with peace. That's the kind of aging no one talks about. Not the kind that focuses on how many steps you walk or what your cholesterol says, but the kind that whispers, "How do I want to feel while I'm still here?" Because deep down, we all want the same thing in the years ahead: to feel well, to feel steady, to feel whole. Not in a perfect way, but in a peaceful one. That's what this conversation is about. Not about strict rules or the latest miracle food. It's about something softer, deeper: the quiet habits that bring life back to your days. The little shifts in how you eat, how you move, and how you think that begin to create something rare and beautiful. A life that feels like yours again. Natalie began this journey at 67. After retiring, she expected to finally feel free, but instead, she felt restless. Mornings stretched endlessly. Meals were whatever was easiest, and her thoughts, once busy with to-do lists, now swirled with memories and regrets. She didn't feel sick, but she didn't feel well either. Just off, like her days didn't belong to her. Then, one morning, she went for a walk. Nothing ambitious, just a slow stroll to the corner and back. But when she returned home, something had shifted. Her breath felt fuller, her mind quieter. She made herself oatmeal instead of toast and tea instead of coffee. She sat down without the TV on, and she felt just for a moment present. It wasn't a transformation, it was a beginning. Because peaceful longevity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what nourishes you consistently, gently, lovingly. For Natalie, that first step started with food. Not dieting, not restriction, just intention. She began eating with the question, what would support me today? Sometimes that meant warm soups, sometimes fresh fruits, sometimes simply slowing down enough to taste her meals, not just consume them. And through that quiet practice, she began to feel better, not just in her body, but in her heart. She wasn't trying to reverse the years, she was finally honoring them. That's what nourishment really means as we age. Not following trends, but listening to your body with new ears. Lucas, a 72-year-old who once prided himself on never needing help, learned this the hard way. He used to skip breakfast, drink too much coffee, and eat late dinners in front of the news. He thought it didn't matter, until one day, his hands started trembling. He felt dizzy when standing. His doctor said, "You're not sick, you're depleted." So Lucas began eating differently, not perfectly, but purposefully. He swapped toast for eggs, added greens to his soup, started drinking water before coffee. Within weeks, his energy returned, his clarity sharpened, and with it came something unexpected: patience. He said, "When I stopped rushing my meals, I stopped rushing my life." That's the power of eating well, not to impress anyone, not to chase youth, but to return to the present moment, to reclaim your mornings, your rituals, your sense of care. But food is only the beginning, because how you move through your day literally also tells your body what kind of life you expect to live. Claire, at 70, had always walked with purpose. Grocery store, doctor's appointments, around the block with a goal in mind. But it wasn't until her granddaughter invited her to a Tai Chi class that she realized there was another way. Slow, grounded, flowing. It felt strange at first, like doing nothing, but by the end of that first session, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: rooted. Her mind had been quiet for an entire hour, her breathing deep, her joints warm, not tight. And so, she started practicing a new kind of walking. Not just to get somewhere, but to be somewhere. That's the second foundation of peaceful longevity. To walk not as a task, but as an offering, a gift to your body, a rhythm to your thoughts. Even if it's just from the bedroom to the kitchen, even if it's in circles around your garden, Even if it's while holding on to the wall, it's not about distance. It's about presence. It's about saying, with each step, I am here, I am moving, I am alive. These little rituals, eating slowly, walking gently, may seem small, but together, they begin to rebuild something inside of you. A sense of wholeness, a sense of direction, not in the outside world, but in your own spirit. And from there, something even deeper begins to unfold. Not just how you eat, not just how you walk, but how you think. Have you ever caught yourself thinking, I used to be stronger than this? Or, what happened to the days when I could do it all? It's a quiet kind of grief, isn't it? The mind remembers what the body no longer rushes to keep up with. And in that space between who you were and who you are now, a certain kind of sadness can settle. But here's what's rarely said. Peaceful longevity doesn't come from chasing who you used to be. It comes from befriending who you are today, and that friendship begins in the mind. Not with grand affirmations or forced positivity, but with the soft, daily act of choosing your thoughts, like you choose your meals with care. Because how you think shapes how you age. Abigail, who just turned 73, spent most of her life worrying about her children, her finances, her health, the world. Even after retirement, when the responsibilities lightened, the worry stayed. She said, "It felt like I didn't know how to feel calm anymore. My body was resting, but my mind never stopped." Until one afternoon, after a particularly anxious morning, she stepped outside and sat under the tree in her backyard. No phone, no tasks, just birdsong and breeze. And for a few moments, her thoughts quieted. Not completely, but enough. She realized then that peace wasn't something she had to earn. It was already available. She had just forgotten how to listen for it. So she started practicing something simple. Every morning, before she picked up the phone or turned on the TV, she would ask herself, what do I want to think about today? Not what do I have to do, but what kind of thoughts do I want to carry with me? It changed everything. Because the mind, like the body, becomes what we feed it. If we feed it regret, it will ache. If we feed it fear, it will tremble. But if we feed it kindness, it will soften. Lucas, who once lived with constant frustration about getting older, used to say, there's nothing golden about these years. His days were filled with memories of what he'd lost: mobility, friends, roles, energy. He saw aging as a slow erosion. But during a community event, he met someone who changed his outlook. A man in his 80s who painted watercolors and wore bright scarves. Lucas asked him, "Aren't you angry about getting old?" And the man smiled and said, "No, I'm grateful I still get to change." That sentence stayed with Lucas because he realized something. The mind ages too, but it can also grow, shift, heal, lighten. He began learning one new thing each week, not for mastery, for curiosity. One week it was making bread. Another, it was reading poetry. Another, a documentary on stars. And slowly, he felt less bitterness. Not because his life had changed, but because his thoughts had. You don't need to think happy thoughts all the time to feel peace. You just need to become more aware of the stories you tell yourself, and gently, lovingly, choose better ones. Madeline, at 75, used to tell herself, "I'm too old to start again." She said it so often, she believed it, until her granddaughter invited her to a local writing group. "Just come listen," she said. Madeline sat quietly in the back at first. But one evening, she brought a piece of her own, just a few paragraphs about her childhood. When she read it aloud, the room was silent, moved. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like an old woman fading from relevance. She felt like a storyteller. And that shift wasn't just about finding a hobby. It was about finding a new thought. I still have something to say. That one thought, repeated often enough, became a kind of anchor. Because when your mind has something to look forward to, your heart follows. It doesn't have to be complicated. Maybe for you, it's sitting quietly with a warm drink and whispering a blessing over your day. Maybe it's writing down one thing you're grateful for, not because life is perfect, but because there's still beauty in it. Maybe it's choosing to focus less on what you can't do and more on what you still can, not in denial, but in devotion. Devotion to the present moment. Devotion to your dignity. Devotion to the version of yourself that still wants to live. Not just survive, but truly live. That is the final and perhaps most important foundation of peaceful longevity. It's not just about food or movement. It's about how you speak to yourself when no one's listening. It's about how you guide your own thoughts gently back to center when they drift toward fear or sorrow or shame. And it's about the quiet power that comes from realizing that aging doesn't have to mean fading. It can mean ripening. It can mean becoming, you are not behind. You are not too late. You are right on time for the life that still wants to bloom through you. So the next time your thoughts begin to spiral about the aches in your body, or the people you miss, or the years that pass too quickly, pause, place your hand gently over your heart, and say, I am still here, and this day belongs to me. Let that be your first thought. And from there, everything else will follow. There's a soft kind of wisdom that comes when all three foundations, how you eat, how you move, and how you think, begin to harmonize. It doesn't announce itself. It's not something you can measure in numbers or charts, but you feel it in the way your body wakes up without resistance, in the way your meals feel like care, not habit, in the way your thoughts pause long enough to notice the morning light on the floorboards or the sound of your own laughter returning after being gone for too long. That's what happened to Owen. He's 78, once a builder, always a thinker. After his wife passed, his days blurred into each other. Meals were rushed. Walks were aimless. His thoughts were heavy, circling around what he had lost. Then, without really planning to, he began doing small things differently. He started each morning with warm water and lemon, something he read about in a magazine, which he'd previously rolled his eyes at. But it became a ritual, a signal to his body. You matter today. Then he added a short walk around the garden. At first, just a few steps, then longer, then with music. And finally, he changed the way he talked to himself. When he missed his wife, instead of spiraling into the ache, he'd whisper, "She's still here in the way I sit by the roses, in the way I remember to breathe." None of it was dramatic, no grand resolutions, no rigid schedules, just small, steady choices. And after a few weeks, his daughter said to him, "You seem lighter." That's the word. Isn't it? Lighter. Not younger, not busier, but lighter. Peaceful longevity isn't about doing more. It's about carrying less guilt, less noise, less pressure to prove you're still useful. And when you begin to carry less, you make room for what matters more. Claire, after discovering the grounding calm of Tai Chi, began teaching it to 2 other women in her neighborhood. They started in her backyard, shaky at first, giggling at how stiff they felt. But over time, they found a rhythm together. Their movements became slower, yes, but also more intentional. And the hour they spent together each week became sacred, not just for their bodies, but for their spirits. Because when we move with grace, we invite grace into other parts of our lives. When you walk gently, your thoughts follow. When you eat slowly, your breath slows too. When you choose better thoughts, your body softens in response. It's all connected, and that connection, once you begin to feel it again, becomes a kind of anchor, a reason to wake up with hope, not heaviness. Natalie, who used to feel lost in her long, quiet mornings, now looks forward to them. She lights a candle, slices fruit, sits with her tea, not scrolling, not watching, just sitting, breathing, being. She says, "I used to think peace was something I had to chase. Now I know it was always waiting for me in the quiet." So much of aging, when you listen closely, is not about decline. It's about returning to what's essential, returning to the truth that your body is not broken. It's asking for gentler care, that your mind is not failing. It's asking for clearer focus, that your heart is not too old to feel joy. It's simply been waiting for space to bloom again. And the good news, it doesn't take a massive change. It takes small moments, practiced often. Food that gives you life, not just fuel. Movement that reconnects you, not just routines. Thoughts that restore you, not just distract you. You already have everything you need. The ingredients are simple: awareness, compassion, and time. Time not to rush, not to chase, but to notice how you feel after a meal, to notice how the earth sounds beneath your feet, to notice when your thoughts are pulling you into a story you no longer need to tell. You are not here to fight your aging. You are here to walk with it. to partner with it, to say, if I have these years left, I will live them gently. I will live them fully. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to follow every rule. You don't need to be what you once were. You only need to be present with who you are now. You are still you, still full of wisdom, still capable of tenderness, still able to shift your days from dull to meaningful with one quiet choice at a time. And that is enough. You don't need to be loud to be well. You only need to listen to your body, to your heart, to the gentle voice that says, this is the way back to yourself. If you're still here with me, I want you to know something deeply important, something that often gets lost in the noise of advice, self-help, and pressure to age well. You're already enough, right now, as you are. You don't need to do more to deserve peace. You don't need to be more to be loved. You don't need to chase after youth to matter. The fact that you're still breathing, still reflecting, still caring about how to live meaningfully means you're already living a kind of quiet wisdom that not everyone reaches. So many people age outwardly, but stay stuck inwardly. But not you, because you're here. You chose to sit with your thoughts. You chose to listen, not for noise, but for truth. And that is no small thing. I know the world doesn't always honor that. I know it's easy to feel invisible as the years go on, like the world has moved forward without you, and all your value is tucked away in old photographs or long past accomplishments. But let me remind you, peaceful longevity isn't about being seen by everyone. It's about being fully present with yourself. You're not fading. You're refining. You're not past your prime. You're standing in your power, quieter, wiser, more attuned to what really matters. So I hope you give yourself permission to live these next years on your terms, to eat in a way that makes you feel nourished, not punished, to move in a way that grounds you, not exhausts you, to think in a way that brings you home to your spirit, not back to regrets or fears. And if you ever forget this, if the noise gets too loud, or the loneliness too heavy, or the past too close, I want you to come back here. Come back to this moment. Breathe. Put your hand gently over your heart and say, I am still here, and that is enough. Because it is, and because this world still needs what you carry. The softness, the slowness, the steadiness. You've lived enough to know that nothing lasts forever, not the pain, not the confusion, not even the joy. But what does remain is presence, and that's what we're building here. So, if this message brought you even a little bit of calm, if it made you feel seen or reminded you of your own quiet strength, I would love for us to stay connected. Click subscribe if that feels right for you. Not because you have to, but because sometimes it's just good to have a place to return to, a place where you feel heard without having to shout. And if you feel safe doing so, I invite you to share a bit of your own journey in the comments. What helps you feel at peace these days? What's something small you do for your body, your mind, or your spirit that keeps you anchored? There's someone else out there who needs to hear your story. And maybe, just maybe, your words will be the light that helps them find their way. We're all walking this road together, not to the finish line, but toward freedom, toward ease, toward becoming more ourselves with every breath. So, thank you for listening, for staying, for still believing in your own unfolding. I'll see you again soon, but until then, keep walking gently, keep feeding yourself with care, and most of all, keep thinking kindly toward yourself. That's how peace grows, quietly, from the inside out, always.